Coming up, last week he was telling us about alien technology. Today he will share about how close we are to having flying cars. Intrigue Journal with Sean Paul is next. All right. So last week I was talking about alien technology that we got and acquired from the Roswell crash. I asked people to just challenge their beliefs, challenge their reality. And this week will be no different because we've got brilliant people that are saying that things like that will never happen. I personally think that is a beautiful picture, but is it real or is it fiction? All right. So first guy I want to talk about is this guy, Elon Musk. We know who he is. He has Tesla motor cars, of which I want one of those amazing electric cars. I would love to have one of those. And he also has SpaceX. And that company is going to put a guy like me out of business because I make my living, doing magic and cutting people in half and all for the sake of a show. What he has is even more amazing. He has rockets that land on the launching pad in reverse. So he's a brilliant guy. And on the subject of flying cars, he doesn't have much confidence or hope for flying cars. He doesn't think they're practical. You compare them to the toys that people are flying around or photographers. They only weigh 3 pounds and yet they make a ton of noise. Now imagine multiplying that times 1,000 times, big enough for somebody to get inside. He said it would displace so much air and it would be so loud, it would be obnoxious to take off and land in the neighborhood with those things. Okay? So is he being a pessimist or is he being realistic when he says that? And is that accurate? Another very smart guy. He's the host of Cosmos. He's a astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he's espoused some thoughts on the subject as well. Does he think that it's possible? Well, he said basically the same thing about displacing the air. Think of how much air it would. Think about what it's like for a helicopter to take off. We're talking about the same kind of disruption. So those things are not taking out of people's driveways, and they're very noisy. But a little later on in an interview that was take place a couple months ago, after he said it wouldn't work because of how loud it is, he said, "Do you remember 25 years ago, if you were living near an airport and they were flying overhead, you actually had to stop your conversation until the plane passed by? It doesn't happen anymore." They quieted down those turbines. So if they can quiet down turbines that carry hundreds of people, I think I'm holding out hope that the same could be applied for personal flying devices. Okay. But, the problem is people are expecting them to be cars, right? Well, what if, and by the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he also has concerns about safety, because if you're driving a car and it breaks down, it just stops in the road. But if you're flying a car and it breaks down, it falls from the sky. But what if your flying car looks like this? It's getting flight with a parachute. So this thing runs like a regular car. You open up the flight, there's a fan out the back, it'll go 40 miles an hour. I don't think that's what most people are thinking about when they think about flying cars. And it's totally safe, right? Well, over there on the right-hand side, you can see in British Columbia, Canada, it crashed near an elementary school. Okay, so that's another thing that opens up a whole new discussion. Is it safe to the people flying in the air? What about the people on the ground? That missed an elementary school, but it crashed very close to it. All right, so let's talk about the next side. So really the thing is people's perceptions is a flying car should look like that. It should drive like a regular car and take flight. And I think that's what Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson are talking about. It's not going to be like that. In fact, Elon Musk said, if you want a flying car, put big wheels on a helicopter. There you go. All right, but I have to move fast here. Let's talk about some really exciting ideas and designs. The Terrafuga, okay? Now, this is made by this is a concept car. I think that's one of the most beautiful designs there is, and it probably fits into what people are expecting. However, not practical, okay? Because you've got all the heavy hardware of a car embedded into something that's supposed to fly. Now, if you look at what it's supposed to do, these wings come up, these electric twin turbines, much like the Osprey. And they take off vertically and they fly. It's a beautiful design. However, we will probably not see anything like that working for decades. That is the Crown Prince of Dubai. He wants to have the first taxi, be the first country to have flying taxis. And in fact, this is called the Volvo copter, and he is going to, he took he christened it by taking the maiden voyage in it. The flight lasted only a couple minutes, and that they want to have, basically, they want to have the Uber of flying cars in Dubai. Not only that, they want the police to have their own flying vehicles. Look at that. That's called the hover surf. And hover surf, they showcased it trying to court the Dubai Police Department because they have a real affinity for integrating the latest technology. I don't know about you, but I would not want to be a bad guy being chased by a guy that's riding a flying food processor. You could get chopped up. In fact, I wouldn't want to be the guy riding that. Look at how fast, how close those blades are to his knees. I mean, he's got to be wearing Kevlar or something there, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the IFO. You want to talk about Roswell? Look at this. This looks like this was inspired by Roswell. 8 spinning blades in basically your own IFO, not UFO, identified flying object. And what's really cool is it lands and it's got these spokes that come down, and then the cockpit descends and it lets you in and out that way. Okay. It could go as fast as 125 miles an hour and fly about the average height of a helicopter. Okay, but again, this is kind of a test vehicle. All right. Now let me show you something that they want to be selling this as soon as next year, and you can buy that flying machine for about the same price as an SUV. It's got 8 electric motors, and they're very powerful. In fact, it has a very elegant movement. It actually almost moves like a fish through the air. It's fascinating to watch, but it's like an ultralight in that it's very light, and it can only carry one person. And that person can be taught how to drive it very quickly, and it just moves around. And the inventor of that, next slide, he actually was calculating how much power could come out of one of those blowers, and it was so surprising that he actually built it. And if he stands behind one of those, it'll almost knock him over, just one of those fans. But they're extremely loud. Okay? So, noise is a factor when it comes to these things, and that weighs into how practical something is going to end up being. I think one of the best chances for us to have these VTOL vehicles. When I say VTOL, that stands for vertical takeoff and land. All right. So basically, it's not a flying car; it's a personal flying device. Is what most of these things are ending up being. All right. And so at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas that took place last week, all right, all the latest and greatest technology is there. And I had a friend that was displaying right across the hall from one of the most popular exhibits on the floor. It was in the automotive section, and it was from Bell Labs. I talked about Bell Labs last week because they were the ones that got the integrated circuit from Roswell. Well, look at what they're creating. That's 6 turbines on that. All right? It's called the Nexus, the Bell Nexus. It would take off vertically, and it can go about 150 miles an hour for about 150 miles. And the idea is that Uber wants to partner up with them, and basically you can take that and fly with it, just like you would a taxi. That is probably, and they're looking at the mid-2020s. And that is probably one of the most exciting and practical applications to this whole subject. And so basically, we're not looking at a Back to the Future car. We're actually looking at more like a George Jetson car. Okay, that goes up vertically, lands the same way, but when you get to work, it probably doesn't fold up into a suitcase.